Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are diving into something that is absolutely essential for anyone doing web automation. We're talking about creating CSS selectors, specifically using the class attribute. Trust me, this is a tool you're going to use all the time. So let's just jump right in with a scenario you've probably run into a million times. You're writing a script, you need to click a button, you go to inspect it, and no ID. It's a super common roadblock, right? But don't worry, there's a really powerful way around it. But before we get to the new stuff, let's do a super quick recap of the tool you already know and love, the ID selector. It's usually the first thing we look for when we need to grab an element. Right, so the whole point of an ID is that it's supposed to be unique on the page. And CSS gives us this awesome little shortcut for it, the hash symbol, or the pound sign. You just use the tag name, a hash, and then the ID value. It's simple, it's clean, it's effective. Now, keep that hash symbol in your head because it's going to be important in just a second. Okay, so just like the ID attribute gets its own special symbol, the class attribute does too. This is the new tool we're adding to our toolkit today, and believe me, it is just as important as the ID selector. All right, let's put them side by side. It's actually super simple. For the ID attribute, we use the hash, and for the class attribute, we use a dot. That's it. The syntax is pretty much identical. Tag name, symbol, then the value. Hash for ID, dot for class. That is the single biggest thing to remember. Okay, enough theory. Let's see how this actually plays out on a real web page. We're going to go inspect a text field and build our very first class selector right now from scratch. So how do we build one of these things? It's a really simple 4-step process. First, we inspect the element, right? We see its HTML tag is an input. Then we find the class attribute, and we see its value is text field. Now we just put those pieces together using our new rule. Tag name, followed by a dot, followed by the class value. So that gives us input.textfield. Looks great, doesn't it? It follows the syntax perfectly. But when we actually go to test this selector, we might just run into a little hiccup. And here it is. This is the most important difference between IDs and classes. An ID should always be unique, but a class name, well, a class name can be slapped on dozens of different elements all over the page. And that leads to a very common trap. And yep, there it is. Our selector input.textfield found 6 different elements. Now, for automation, that is a complete non-starter. Let's talk about why this is such a big deal. So what went wrong? Well, nothing with our syntax. The problem is that the class text field just isn't unique. And for automation, this is a showstopper. Your script needs to know exactly which element to interact with. If your selector finds 6, the script basically throws its hands in the air and says, I don't know which one you want, and it'll fail. So does this mean we just give up on class selectors? No way. It just means we need to be a little bit smarter. We need to find an element that has a class name that is unique. So let's look around the page for something else. Maybe that sign up button. Okay, let's inspect that sign up button. We see its tag is also an input, but check it out. Its class name is sign up. So following our rule, our new selector is input.signup. Let's see what happens when we give this one a try. And bingo, 1 of 1. Now that is what we're looking for. This selector found exactly one element on the page, which is perfect for our automation. Why? Because the class signup is only used on this one button. We have a reliable, unique selector. That's a win. All right, we've covered quite a bit, so let's boil all this down into a really simple cheat sheet with the key rules you need to walk away with. This table really says it all. For the ID attribute, you use a hash, and it should always be unique. For the class attribute, you use a dot, and here's the key, it may not be unique. That's the whole lesson. Whenever you write a class selector for automation, you absolutely have to double-check that it only finds one element. Oh, and one last little thing you should know. While the dot shortcut is definitely the best way to do this, you might also see it written out in a more long-form basic syntax that's input with square brackets and then class equals signup. You know what? They both select the exact same element, but the dot notation is just cleaner, it's faster to type, and it's pretty much the standard everyone uses. So look, if you forget everything else from this explainer, please just remember this one thing. When you see a class attribute, think dot. When you see an ID attribute, think hash. If you can just master those 2 shortcuts, you'll be able to handle a huge chunk of your selection needs. And that, of course, leads us to the ultimate cliffhanger. What do you do in those really tricky situations where you can't find a unique ID or a unique class? Well, That's where things get really fun and you start combining multiple attributes to build your own unique selector. But that's a story for another time. Thanks for joining me.